All the students are requested not to present their screen. Please keep your phone in mute mode and do not present the screen. Hello, Arafik, are you there? Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
আচ্ছা, তোমার কাছে I have sent you already that voice clip of Roompa, isn't it? Have you
Yes,
got it?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So when will you produce it? Um,
Let's wait for 5 more minutes and then we will start.
okay.
Some of the students are still joining, so let's wait for 5 minutes and then we will start.
Sir has not yet joined. Has he joined?
Uh, I think he has joined.
Oh,
Yes, he has joined.
So my
okay.
can you
Okay,
hear
so
me
Yes,
right now?
yes,
yes,
sir.
sir.
Ah,
Yes, sir.
okay.
I think principal sir has also joined. Let me
Yeah.
just ask.
Hmm.
Principal sir, are you there? Sir, अपनी chat से? Uh, Sir, अपनी chat से principal sir.
Action,
হ্যালো,
sir.
হ্যাঁ স্যার আমরা শুরু করি তাহলে।
হ্যাঁ, হ্যালো, থেকে
আচ্ছা,
শোনা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
হ্যাঁ, ওকে।
আচ্ছা,
Now it is 3:27. স্যারের ভয়েসটা একটু শুনে নাও, শোনা যাচ্ছে কিনা?
Hello.
হ্যাঁ স্যার বলুন।
Can you
হ্যাঁ
hear me?
ওকে, ওকে। Yes, yes.
yes sir.
Uh, I'm also visible, I suppose.
Yes, sir, you're
Yes sir.
visible.
Uh,
Good afternoon. On behalf of Malda College English Department, I welcome you all in this webinar and special lecture series. We were supposed to start with our inaugural session with Dr. Rumba Das, Principal of Mohesh Kala College. But I apologize on her behalf too. She has sent her message to us as she couldn't be part of our session due to the network coverage, bad network coverage. So I would like to present her message first, and then we will start with the inaugural session.
হ্যালো, Rathika, any problem?
There has been some audio problem. I have sent the link to Aratrika that has been sent by Rumba.
Uh,
Is the voice not audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So that was her message from Dr. Rumpa Das. She couldn't be with us today. So, but we are glad to inform that we have Professor Himanshu Lahiri with us today, and I would request our principal sir to inaugurate the session with his words, and then we will hear from him.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. The spread of COVID-19 has affected almost all spheres of human life, physical, emotional, even economic. COVID-19 gives the opportunity also to come together as one humankind. It also gives the opportunity to learn together. So today's webinar is also one of the opportunities before the students of Malda College Department of English who will get the lessons from Professor Himadri Lahiri, University of Burdwan. I would like to convey my sincere thanks and gratitude to Professor Lahiri for joining with us and for sharing your knowledge with our students. I would like to appreciate all the faculty members of the Department of English, Malda College, for arranging this webinar. I hope students will be immensely benefited from the lecture of Professor Lahiri. Thank you, Professor Lahiri, for joining with us. With this saying, I will inaugurate the today's seminar. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for your words. Now I request AK Madam to say a little bit about the special lecture series and introduce sir with us.
Thank you, Aratrika. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we have the proud privilege to introduce Professor Himadri Lahiri as the inaugural speaker, the first speaker of this webinar. I couldn't hear Rumpa's message, but she has said that she will take her lecture, she would deliver her lecture on 9th, probably on 9th of June. But today, the topic is research methodology, and Professor Himadri Lahiri from Burdwan University is a renowned scholar in this aspect. And I think all the students will be benefited by this because research methodology is a very important part in modern syllabus, and I think questions on part of the students will also be delivered, and the entire session would be an interactive one, and the rest is to Professor Lahiri.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Principal Sir. Thank you, colleagues, students. Good afternoon. And let me begin my deliberations today. As you know that the basic thrust of my talk today will be on research methodology, and I'm sure that your students have research methodology as one of the important components of their syllabus. So,
Sir,
from
please,
that,
one thing, Seli Khatun, please stop your sharing. Seli Khatun, who is Seli Khatun, stop your presentation. Okay, sir, continue. Seli Khatun.
I think I'm audible and visible.
Yes.
There's no problem in that because it's a technological kind of thing, and I'm technologically challenged. So you see that we have to adapt ourselves to this new kind of technology. And from that point of view, it's also my pleasure that I can familiarize myself with this kind of presentation. As I said, that research methodology is a very important component of syllabus. And from that point of view, I am very privileged today to talk something about research methodology. And when I say something about research methodology, of course, I am addressing my students who belong to the humanities, particularly English departments. And I myself belong to English department. So my point of view will be, my point of view and my perspective will, of course, be that of someone who belongs to humanities group. I say this specifically because you know that research methodology for students of English literature is a bit different. there is a tendency everywhere in different universities that the kind of pattern that the universities actually invent actually is heavily they heavily tend to focus the sociological research studies, or even science studies. But approaching a literary topic is something different. You cannot just conform to the kinds of studies followed by social scientists or scientists for that matter. So I will like to sensitize the students on this particular aspect and talk about the differences between the science methodologies followed in science subjects or social science subjects, and the humanities in general, specifically English literature. Basic difference between the methodologies of science and social sciences are that we students of English literature do not go to the laboratories. We usually do not go to the field studies and interview people and do kinds of surveys unless we belong specifically to linguistics group. Okay, so our methodology is bound to be different. Our inferences are bound to be different. Our hypotheses are bound to be different. So this is the basic point that I want to say in the beginning, and then start my ideas about what research methodology means for the students of English literature. The books that you find in the market, in the libraries, are basically books meant for the social science students or the students of science. But you will hardly find any book that is approached from the perspective of English literature or Bengali literature or any subject of literary studies. So from that point of view, I believe that we have to have some kinds of very firm ideas about how to proceed our researches. Now you see that the students are two students of Malda College, the PG students. I'm given to understand they have to write term papers and they have to write thesis or dissertations. Now you see that there may be some confusion about the different terms, like you see term papers or seminar papers or theses or dissertations. There might be some confusions about this, and there is enough reason for the confusion, because if you consult your dictionary, you will find that the dictionaries do not give you very clear definitions of these terms. All the dictionaries specifically mention these terms as some form of researches. So, how to approach these words, how to understand these words. I will inform you about my understanding of the words. You may differ, and you may have your own opinions. Then we can discuss at the end of the session. You see that term paper, the very phrase term paper is indicative that it is usually submitted at the end of the term, a semester term or any other term for that matter. So from that point of view, the word term paper comes into being. Okay, so term paper is supposed to be part of a course, a session, or a semester, and during this period, maybe 6 months or 8 months or 1 year, after this period, you are supposed to submit this term paper. This is actually the term end paper. So a seminar paper basically means that it is meant to be submitted. It is same kind of writing as the term paper, but it is basically meant for presentations to your colleagues, to your peers, to your students, to your friends, something like that. So seminar paper has its limitations in the sense that you are supposed to present your paper within 20 minutes or 25 minutes or at best 30 minutes. So you will have to present your paper within that time period, which means that you cannot write a long thesis. Okay, same holds true about the term paper, because term paper differs from thesis or dissertations is so far as the length and the breadth is concerned. So the length of the term paper really does not exceed 30 pages or 40 pages, and a thesis is a bigger venture from that point of view. And a thesis is presented usually as part of the course of PhD or MPhil. Okay, both MPhil and PhD courses, they have thesis or dissertations. Dictionaries also do not specifically differentiate between these two terms. Okay, both the terms actually mean that you will have to do some form of research, and the research will be a lengthy research. It will span for the MPhil course 1 year or at best 2 years. Usually it is 1 year, and for the PhD course, it is usually not less than 2 years and at best 6 years. And even after the sixth year, you can get extension. Okay, so PhD thesis is a longer exercise, and MPhil thesis is a much shorter exercise. Usually, the page numbers vary from 80 to 120 or 130 for MPhil dissertations. But then dissertations are and thesis, these two words, these two terms are used interchangeably. Although there are differences among the critics, I'm not going into that. I'm sure that they are used interchangeably. And from that point of view, you will have to understand at which level of academic research you are, whether you are at the postgraduate level, or you are at the MPhil level, or you are at the PhD research level. So according to your academic status, your research will vary. The length and breadth and depth of your research will certainly vary. So these are the important aspects of a research, and the students of Malda College, I'm sure, they will have to write their thesis. There must be some specified limit to the number of pages they will have to write, a number of words they will have to write. So from that point of view, you see the difference between these words, all these words, is basically not qualitative but quantitative. Quantitatively, it may be 40 pages, quantitatively, it may be 120 pages, and for the PhD, it may be 250 pages or 300 pages or something like that. So this this quantitative aspect for me is not very important. What is important is to do the actual research, and therein lies the problem. Therein lies many technical aspects as well as aspects of epistemology, as well as the aspect of knowledge gathering. I will talk about some aspects of this knowledge because within an hour or so, you cannot discuss every aspect of this research methodology. I will try to cover as much as that as I can, but I will basically focus on two basic aspects. Number one is the differences between the three terms: methodology, and research skill. On the one hand, this is the first one, and the second one is the ethical practices, which is very important for the students and the teachers and the colleagues, because these days we find that plagiarism is a kind of a curse because of the presence of the internet, where you do not have to do much exercise. You just go to some particular site and cut and paste or copy and paste. And therefore, what happens that the UGC has prescribed the compulsion of checking each and every thesis, PhD and an M thesis before submission. And the same may be true of the postgraduate level as well. And I therefore want to sensitize the students as to how to actually write the research papers and what not to do and what to do. So these are the two aspects. Number one, the terms like methodology and research skill, and number two, research ethics. These are the two areas where I would, of course, like to focus on. So, but before that, you see, I will, of course, try to define the word research itself. What do we mean by the word research? These are preliminary ideas, but even then, I will, of course, like to discuss these things. You know that research, if you parse the sentence, parse the word, if you accent the word, you will find that the basic thrust is on the word search. But there is also a prefix re, suggesting that you go again to the area for doing some kind of investigation. So research is a kind of academic exercise where we go again and again in order to investigate the particular area and in order to unearth areas which have not been unearthed earlier. So from that point of view, discovery of certain facts and figures and perspectives are important locations, important objectives for research. So research from that point of view is a word which is open-ended, which is not close-ended, because you go again and again and the research is never complete. It never completed. Even if you complete your own research, somebody will take up your research, take up his or her own research, and maybe in the same area, and he or she will extend, revise, reformulate the problems and the findings that you have already arrived at during your research. So research is a kind of continuous process. It is a kind of community exercise. Community of academicians actually go on researching, and therefore what happens is that you never arrive at a particular point. For the time being, you have done your research, you have your findings, and these findings are important, but then these findings are not final. This may be changes. This happens more regularly in cases of science and social science subjects. For example, you see that at one point of time, it was supposed that the sun revolves around the earth. Okay, so that was supposed to be the kind of fact people accepted, unless and until it was revised and new theories were presented and the facts were found to be totally different. And many more facts and figures might come in future researches as well. So in the same way in other areas as well. So you see that research is actually an academic exercise in order to discover, unearth new facts, new figures, new perspectives. For example, you are doing researches on T.S. Eliot or Thomas Hardy. You have access to the original books used by Hardy or the latest that have never been published. They are stored in some university somewhere in England or the US. You go to those libraries and find some articles, some papers, some letters, some documents which give you new dimensions, new facts, or new figures, new relationships, you come to discover that some particular artist had some kind of relationship with some men or women which were responsible for a total turnover, a turn up of a new corpus of literary works. So from that point of view, what happens is that you come to discover new facts and figures, and from that point of view, you offer new facts and new figures. But then, for us people who are located in India and who do not have the scope, most of us do not have the scope to consult important documents which lie stored in some libraries or some archives which are far away in the US or UK or in any European countries, and we cannot access them. So, what can we do? Can we discover any new fact or any new figure or any new relationship? That is hardly possible, I think. So, for us, what does research means? For us, people located in countries like us, what happens is that we mostly do researches in discovering new perspectives. Okay, so perspectives are as much important as the facts and figures or any material things. So what happens that you approach Eliot from Indian perspective and you find new areas of signification in his own works, especially because you find several Sanskrit words in his famous poem, The Westland, and you try to think about them from your own point of view, from Indian point of view, and from the, Buddhism, for example. So you have new materials from that perspective, and you come up with new researches. So it is not only facts and figures, but also perspectives that are important in research. So your research actually adds to the already accumulated knowledge system that is benefited, that knowledge system, that storehouse is benefited by your research. From that point of view, you have a real contribution to the corpus of researchers on T.S. Eliot or Hardy or Dickens, or it may be anybody else. For that matter, you see, there were many writers who had direct or indirect relationships with countries like India. For example, E.M. Foster. For example, Kipling. So you are more at ease to do researches in these areas because you can visit the places, you can visit the libraries, the houses where they lived, or the people with whom they had interactions. So it is very much possible for us to do researches from these points of view. Post-colonialism from that perspective is a new kind of perspective which is important for our students. There are many other perspectives like Marxism, for example, which can be utilized. So this is research. And when I say these things, it already involves a number of steps, steps which you are to follow. I'll be reading two quotations about what research is, and if you listen to these definitions, you will find that there are several steps which we should follow when we start beginning our researches. The first quotation is from a book written by a scholar called Deshpande. He says, research consists in defining and redefining problems. So you come across the word problems, formulating hypotheses or possible solutions to the research problem. You note the use of the word hypothesis and solutions to research problems. You come across words like this. Collecting information, which is collecting data. So data may even be textual materials, other kinds of documents. They do not just mean statistical data or mathematical data. Organizing and evaluating it. Whatever data you gather, you organize and you evaluate how much of the data can be taken in, how much of the data is demanded by your research, and whatever is not demanded by your research, you can just set them aside. Organizing and evaluating it, reaching to some findings on the basis of the organization, analysis, interpretation of information collected. So you get a lot of words which are important here. Research is thus a close, careful, and systematic study of a subject. Close, systematic, careful, and systematic study. And this actually means objective study, where you will have to set aside your own personal likes and dislikes, your own personal prejudices and ideologies. You will have to focus on the materials that you have gathered, and you will have to come to the conclusion on the basis of the materials that you have gathered and that you have evaluated. So this process of studies, objective process of studies, and which rejects the studies, and which rejects the subject, and from that point of view, and from that point of view, that is also called scientific studies. Scientific even if do a research on a literary subject, your approach is objective, systematic, and therefore scientific. This is one definition given by Deshpande. Deshpande's book is one of the few books which deals with researchers in English literature. I will come to the second quotation, which is from a book written by, which is from an article written by Dinesh S. H. Hegre. And what does it say? Broadly speaking, research has come to be understood and described as free and diligent inquiry through systematic investigation with a scientific and analytical approach, careful search for new knowledge, discovering new facts, ascertaining existing theories. So ascertaining existing theories, suggesting that you support the theory, you find further proof for the theory, for the acceptance of the theory, extend, collect, or verify knowledge, and relentless pursuit of truth, taking recourse to evidence, observation, measurement, experiment, analysis, persistent thinking, logical reasoning, and comparison. Hegre is basically approaching research from the point of view of a scientist. But even then, whatever he says is valuable for us also. Sometimes a knowledge claim is also called the logical assertion of truth. And please pay attention to this aspect. Sometimes a knowledge claim is also called the logical assertion of truth. It may, however, be an appearance of truth and not the truth itself. This is more applicable to science than to humanities. But then please remember this, that the very definition of truth may be a bit sloppy one. You cannot say that this is truth. You cannot definitely say that this is truth. The truth may be redefined tomorrow. So whatever is truth today may not be truth tomorrow. And what does he say further? He gives the example of the sun moving around the earth and then says, perhaps over the centuries, many such optical illusions came to light. These were optical illusions. What we saw is not what is true. So the truth is something which has to be discovered through further investigation. So you need extension of the observations, extension of researches in order to find out the truth. So there is no one single truth. There are many truths in fact. And from this point of view, we find several intersections with the theories of post-modernism that you have already studied. Truth as they were only true to the extent that they were believed to be true and also justified to be true. At that point of time, it was justified as truth. The community accepted that as truth, but later on they were revised. So you see the truth is not permanent, and therefore the relevance of research never dies. The relevance of research continues forever because at a given point of time you never know what is truth and what is not truth. This also holds good for the students of English literature, Bengali literature, Sanskrit literature, for that matter. Now, you see that when you think of the sun moving around the earth, this is a paradigm. This is a theory. But ultimately, when you come to the point of view that it is the earth that really goes around the sun, what happens is a paradigm change. So it is the mentality, it is the mindset that registers the change. So you see that this paradigm change is very important in any kind of research. They may be at the PG level, they may be at the PhD or the MPhil level. At the PG level, there may be a less scope for that, but then it is not impossible to carry out some kind of paradigm changes in the mindset when you undertake a research at the PG level as well. So this is, in a sense, a definition of research where I always give importance to 2 points: that truth is never important, never stable, and number 2, there must be paradigm changes to the changes of time and attitudes to things. So please, students, please remember these 2 things, which I believe are very, very important. Then let me come to the point, why is it that you choose to do some research on, say, Kamala Das, okay, or Nissim Ezekiel, or any poet for that matter, or any dramatist or novelist for that matter? Why would you take a particular author? That this actually comes under the title that we usually give it to it, the choice of research area and the choice of research topic. You see that I have used 2 terms, research area and research topic. Research area is a bigger area for studies, and you begin with the bigger areas and gradually you focus on some particular point, and when you decide that this is the point on which you will do your research, on which you will examine some texts or some authors or one single author, you arrive at a research topic. So research area is a bigger area. For example, Indian English literature. This is a research area. 20th century British literature. This is an area. Victorian literature. This is an area. American literature. This is an area. Okay? But then when you focus on Emerson, or when you focus on Charles Dickens, or when you focus on, say, Kamala Dash, what you do is that from the area you choose a particular point which is known as the research topic. But this is not the end of your search for the area, for your search for the topic. You come to a decision that you will come on the corpus, this particular corpus, but you will have to name the area, you will have to give a proper phrase to the area, by which I mean that there should be a proper title. And giving a title to a research is one of the toughest tasks that I have personally felt, because the title of a research work must reflect what you want to do. It must reflect the methods and methodology of your work. It must reflect what the focus or focal area of your research is, whether it is a kind of feminist studies, or whether it is some kind of East-West encounter in E.M. Foster, or something like that, that have to be formulated in precise, clear, unambiguous terms. So the title is very important. The title should not be too big. It should not be too small. It should be enough to focus, reflect the things that you want to say, the objectives that you want to arrive at, the points that you want to establish, the hypothesis that you want to that you have already arrived at. So from that point of view, research topic is important, and not only the research topic, but also the phrasing of the research topic, the wording of the research topic, the finding the focus to the research topic. Now, when you come to the research topic, some works you have already done, and some more works you will have to do. And by this I mean that you will have to do literature review. What do you mean by the word, by the phrase literature review? Literature means not creative writings. Here, literature means the corpus, the materials available in that particular area. Okay, all the secondary sources. There are two sources. One, the primary sources. The primary sources are the creative writings that you take for detailed studies, and the secondary sources are those sources which are works on the original writings of the authors. So you must distinguish between the primary sources and the secondary sources. Try to read as much primary sources as possible. You cannot finish the secondary sources. It's a huge area. But you have to choose very judiciously. That will depend on your instinct. When you do your research, when you trace the gesture or the project muse sources, search engines, you will have to depend on your instinct. An instinct. You write your hypothesis. Hypothesis is actually a guess, but a guess that is based on information. A kind of conjecture which is based on information. What do I mean by this? I mean that you have already read a number of books, number of articles, materials, and you have an instinct that your research might ultimately move towards this direction, towards this kind of finding. At the end of your research, you might find certain particular facts and figures which have not been found earlier. Okay, so this is the early foundation on which you start your research. But hypothesis may be true, ultimately found to be true, ultimately found not to be true. But even if it does not prove to be true, it doesn't mean that your research has gone in vain. It's your research that stands the test of time because you have earmarked certain areas that please do not do your research in these areas because I have already done this and I found that my hypothesis was found to be wrong. So hypothesis is basically instinctual. It is guess, based on guess, but then this is very important guess on which you should start your journey towards home. And this home is ultimately your conclusion, your findings. Now, I want to focus on the first area that I mentioned in particular. This area, as I told you, is the three terms which we often use interchangeably. But I feel that we should not interchangeably use this. These three terms are research methods, research methodology, research skill. When we did our researches at the MPhil level or the PhD level, the MLA handbook was supposed to be the methodology. Now we can understand, no, this cannot be the methodology. This is just a research skill. How to prepare your citations, your work cited, your bibliography. So research skill is the skill through which you carry out your works. I will show you, I hope you can see me, I show you a book. This is a very important book. This is edited by Gabriel Griffin, and this book has the title Research Methods for English Studies. The introduction of this book is very important, and my definition of these three terms is from this definition, from this particular book. I will ask the teachers, if they have not already collected a copy of this book, to collect this for the library, and the students can also regularly the introduction, and you will find that the introduction is fantastic. Okay. I'm not going into the details about the introduction, where he traces right from what research meant in the earlier period and what research meant to means now. Someone asked the name of the book, the title of the book, Research Methods for English Studies, edited by Gabriel Griffin. Okay. I will read the three definitions from here. In the meantime, students start thinking about these three terms, what they might mean. Research skills seems to be easier, and I have already given you an example. For example, you go to the library and want to find a very specific book. How can you find this very specific book? Okay, this is a skill. You have a particular kind of a computer where there is a particular kind of a software inserted there, and through that software, you can get access to a number of books on a specific subject from which you can choose your own books. This is a skill. PPT is a skill. PowerPoint presentation is a skill. You need to know you need to have this skill in order to present your paper, a seminar paper, for example, okay, or any paper for that matter. In a seminar, you can present your paper. But this is a skill, okay? And how does Gabriel Griffin define the word, this particular word, research skill? She says, research skills are techniques for handling materials. Very simple definition. How do you handle materials? How do you handle materials like, for example, books in the library or articles in the gesture search machine or any such material? How can I find them? You need a certain kind of skill, and this is called a research skill. From that point of view, I feel that bibliography writing is a skill you either follow MLS style or EPA style or Chicago manual or any manual for that matter, but it will require some kind of skill on your behalf to arrive to execute your purpose. So research skill is very important here. Now, the other words, for example, method and methodology, I think students please give attention to this part. You can have more than one method, but you cannot have more than one methodology. Okay? So what's the basic difference between method and methodology? Method is how you carry out your research. Okay? For example, your topic might suggest that you do a biographical kind of research, which means that you are writing a biography. Writing a biography is not the same as writing a dissertation on Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Okay, so from that point of view, you will have to decide how you will have to do your research, what method you will choose, or you try to find out the effect of a particular film on the audience, on the students, for example. Particular film like Hamlet, for example. So do is that you'll have to take a different method altogether. You cannot read the text Hamlet and read the secondary materials on them, and you can find out the patterns of reception of the particular drama or particular film. You cannot do that. For this, you will have to go to the students or the audience and take their interviews. You will have to have a kind of a survey. You will have to have some kind of interviews. So you follow interview method, you follow survey method. There are subjects for which you will have to go to archive because no materials are available on that. So you follow archival methods. So methods are the ways you conduct your research, through which you conduct your research. Okay. You can have many methods, more than one method. For us students of English literature or Bengali literature, basic method is textual reading method. We basically read texts. We read diagrams. We read the opinions of critics. But everything depends on our reading of the texts. So our basic method is textual reading method. So don't confuse method with methodology. Gabriel Griffin defines method as how you carry out your research. The choice of method will depend on the kind of research you want to conduct. So, in working on Amitabh Ghosh, 4 or 5 texts, you can follow more than one methods. For example, you read all the texts, So you follow textual method, textual reading method, but you can also go to Amitabh Ghosh and take an interview, conduct an interview. So you can follow two methods, interview methods and textual reading method. You may have several other methods at the same time. So method is this, but then methodology is something which is in English literature. In English or literature, methodology is something different. And I agree with the author of this book, Gabriel Griffin, when he says methodology is nothing but the perspectives of how to do the research. What do you mean by perspective? The theoretical framework that you will take. For example, in conducting a study on Mahashweta Devi, you can take a feminist method. Okay. So your theory is a feminist theory. You can have only one theory here unless they gel well. When can they gel well? For example, you can also take post-colonial theory, but then you will have to have a post-colonial Indian feminism or feminist attitude or feminist theory. So you see that you have 3 points of view: one Indian, another one is another one is post-colonial, and the third one is feminist. So these three things can gel well, and from that point of view, you have one methodology and you follow one methodology only. So methodologies can be one, but methods may be different, and research skill is something else. So I believe that these are very important points that every student should keep in mind. And I have taken this idea from Gabriel Griffin. There is nothing new that I say, but if you go to the books written on social science methodologies or science methodologies, you will not find this. This is something applicable to our studies, but this will not apply to science or social science studies, because you see that we follow textual analysis method, we follow a different kind of a research method and methodology. We do not go to the laboratory, or we do not go to the society at large and conduct researches there. Our methodology is totally different. So for us, I think this is very important, and I will expect that the students will keep this in mind, and they can consult this into supply details. There is an Indian edition. Rawat Publications have brought out this book. Now I will focus on. I think I do not have much time. Okay, I will discuss queries. Someone said we need to discuss certain questions. I will do that. But let me talk about. I don't know whether I will be able. Can I go on for 10 or 15 minutes more?
Yes, sir. You can continue.
Okay. So you see that the next point, which is very important, is the ethical point. Ethical point. Why do I do so much importance to give so much importance to ethics? Because ethics is more flouted than ever now. It is exercised in violation. So this ethics should be kept in mind, and I think there should be some mechanism in finding out whether there is plagiarism in a particular term paper or thesis or dissertation. This is important. The quality matters, but more than the quality, what matters is the honesty, the ethical values. one should not imitate, one should not copy, one should not plagiarize. And I want to speak of some kinds of plagiarization so that the students may be very, very careful. And all of us can be careful because sometimes we commit mistakes even without knowing this. I will classify the kinds of plagiarism which is taken from a source, from a book, but I feel that this is very important for us, and we can do our exercises. We can be very cautious about our own writings. And you know that many of us today have plagiarism software like Urkund, or any others, or gradually is acquiring this. In the US or UK, in their websites, educational institutions which conduct researches, they have particular component on plagiarism. And they are merciless in executing the penalties imposed on the students or anybody for that matter, even members of the staff. Plagiarism is more an ethical issue than a legal issue. I say this is an ethical issue because this is related to our morality, this is related to our ethics, what we should do and we should not do. And I say that this is not so much a legal issue because all plagiarism is not liable for prosecution. It is not liable to prosecution simply because unless and until the copyright is expired, it expires. If so long there is copyright, you cannot violate this. But if there is no copyright, then there are scopes for violation of the copyright. Only then, I'm not a legal expert, but I can say this much, it is easier to prosecute a person, otherwise it is very hard to prosecute a person who violates the copyright. So it is more an ethical issue than a legal issue. Now, for example, why do I emphasize on ethics? For example, you have discussed your topic with your teachers, with your colleagues, with your fellow students, and you have received many, say, 3 important points from them, whoever it may be your friend. It is necessary for you to acknowledge the person's contribution to your thesis. That is why acknowledgement is a very important part of a thesis. So acknowledge each and every person you are indebted to. Because if you mention that you have got this point from your teacher, such and such teacher, or such and such friend, your prestige is not diminished, it is not lessened. Your fame does not suffer any damage. On the contrary, people will have respect for you. So this is an ethical issue, acknowledgement. And the other ethical issue, as I said, is plagiarism. I will not get into details because we may not have much time, but I will just classify the kinds of plagiarism and then stop. You see that you search the word plagiarism in your dictionary, you will find that the word plagiarism comes from the Latin word plagiarius, which originally meant kidnapper. So plagiarism is nothing short of kidnapping. What are the points of intersections between kidnapping and plagiarism? Both lift. One lifts a person or anything else. Another one lifts chunks of written pieces or chunks of visual pieces which are copyrighted. So you see, etymologically also it is very important that it is related to, you see, kidnapping. So kidnapping is illegal. Although it is more, plagiarism is more of a ethical point, but even then, it is legally may not be accepted when there is copyright. So there are intersections between the two words. You think about the other intersections. Now, I will come to different kind of plagiarisms. One is straight plagiarism. What do you mean by that? You copy paste or you imitate from a chunk. You imitate a chunk from somebody else. You copy a chunk from somebody, some other book or pieces of writing, and then don't mention the source, or you even don't put the quotation within the quotation marks, and you make it your own. Thereby, you commit plagiarism. This is very simple and this can be very easily found out. There is, secondly, plagiarism using a citation. What do? The real author is acknowledged, but the original text is reproduced only with minor changes without using either quotation marks is not mentioned. So this is better. This might be better than the earlier one, but this is no better in ethical sense. Okay, this is kidnapping nevertheless. Third kind of plagiarism, simple plagiarism using a footnote. What does it mean? I read out. A reference is provided. I have taken all these kinds of plagiarism from a particular book written by Hexham. Okay, so please keep this in mind. Hexham's book is also important here. You will find it very easily. Simple plagiarism using a footnote. What is that? A reference is provided, but the quotation marks are still not used. When academic rules for citation demand their use, and some words are slightly changed to make the passage appear to be different from the original. So you try to improvise, but you still nevertheless. So this is the third kind of plagiarism. The fourth kind of plagiarism is called complex plagiarism using a footnote. What is this? And I quote from Hexham, this happens when various changes and paraphrases from more than one page are used with a footnote but without appropriate quotation marks. Thus, a reference is given, although it may not be to exactly the correct page, and many words and phrases are taken from the original text. Paraphrasing is used to condense lengthy arguments, but little or no indication is given that the passage is paraphrased, nor are quotation marks used when needed. Another technique found in this type of plagiarism is a deliberate attempt to change the appearance but not contents of the sentences, thus making the plagiarism less noticeable, unquote. So you see that the plagiarist here moves on from page to page, but hardly refers to the actual pages, although he may have mentioned the author and the text, but then, and he or she may have paraphrased it, but not properly owing loyalty to the person concerned. So it is, even if it is a paraphrase, even if it is a complex kind of paraphrasing and taking quotation, using the source to a certain extent, but it is plagiarism nevertheless. Next, plagiarism with quotation. Here the plagiarist begins by using a quotation, but continues to quote after closing the quotation marks. So, this is a kind harsh. You quote up to a point, but the later you keep unquoted. You don't mention this. So from that point of view, it is a plagiarism with a quotation, but unquoted portions as well. But the last time plagiarism is very important for all of us, because many of us commit this error even without knowing that we are committing plagiarism. This is called self-plagiarism. And what is this? Self-plagiarism is plagiarizing from your own paper without mentioning. You have written an article in 2017, and now you write a bigger article containing the old article and a portion of a new one's, or a new portion which is your own, which has never been published earlier. You are resorting to self-plagiarism, because you are not putting quotation marks. You think that it is my writing and therefore it will not be a plagiarism. But it is plagiarism because you are showing the same thing twice without acknowledging that. Okay? So do not reproduce from your own article or your own paper published without acknowledging, without properly saying from which portion to which portion is taken, without putting quotation marks properly. So this is, I think, for all of us, a very dangerous kind of a trap in which we might fall. So I have more or less talked about the main areas, and I think I should not talk about anything more. I will just say a few words about the structure of the thesis. You see that a manual for writers of term papers, thesis, and dissertation by Kate L. Turabian, he divides a thesis or any published document into three portions, three main portions. What are these? These are the technical terms: the front matter or the preliminaries, the text proper, which is your own contribution, and the back matter or the reference matter. So there are these three matters even in a dissertation or a term paper. In a long paper, each of these parts may consist of several sections, each beginning with a new page. And I will just mention the kind of pagination that we give to the front matter and the main text areas and the back matters. This is important, and I'm reading. There are two categories of pagination. The front matter numbered with consecutive lowercase Roman numerals. Please remember before you start your introduction or main matter, your pagination should be in lowercase Roman numerals. This is very important. And the rest of the work numbered with Arabic numerals of the text and back matters. So the text proper and the back matters, they are you will have to paginations with the help of Arabic numerals. Usual 1, 2, 3, 4 that we say. So this I think is very important for our students and for us also. Even if a particular page number, for example, the front page, you do not give the pagination mark there. But please count that number, that page. Your number will begin from that. The lowercase Roman numeral will begin from there. Okay? From the first page. And index and the other matters which are prior to the main text will have to be marked by this kind of numerals, and the rest of your paper should have Arabic numerals. So I want to stop here. I think I have spoken more than 1 hour, maybe 1 hour and 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Thank you so much. Now, if questions are possible, I will take the questions. We'll have some discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. If anyone wants any kind of question, please continue.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, sir. I have a question.
Please.
Can a good research be conducted without depending on secondary sources?
Excuse me?
Can a good research be conducted without depending on secondary sources?
Usually not. Because it is an academic exercise, and academic exercise means that you are contributing to the existing research, okay? Existing works that have been already done. So you are actually contributing to the research, the mass of research works. So from that point of view, you need to go through the other research works, other papers, other books. And if you don't do that, you cannot understand whether you are just repeating what has already been said. Okay, so a research paper certainly cannot be done with only the primary source. I think you got the point.
Yes, sir.
Any question? Any other question?
Sir,
Yes.
we are doing masters, so it is very important uh, for us that what would be the suitable strategy for conducting a dissertation for the master's courses, because the time span is very much limited. So what would be our strategy for that?
Of course, this is an important question. Thank you for the question, because think about the time granted to you. If it is, you will have to do it within 3 months or 4 months. You will have to choose a topic that is manageable. You can manage a topic which can be completed within that given time. So the choice of the topic is very important. You take a small area, but you go deeper and deeper into that topic, and you write a good dissertation. So choice of the subject matter is very important in this respect. Okay, and the way you have to do that, that is also important. You cannot read a lot of materials, so instinctively or with the help of your teachers, note down the books or the articles that you will have to read. Okay, if you read those articles, take down notes, and when you write your articles, you only consult the notes. Okay, and on the basis of your notes, you organize your matter, and when you need to go back to the original articles, quote from there, or paraphrase with citations and giving full credit to the original source. Do not plagiarize, but say that somebody argues like this and this. Give page numbers within the brackets, and if you quote exact words, put those words within quotation marks. So my suggestion is that choose a topic which is manageable, and choose secondary materials which are manageable, and then go deeper and deeper. Think within, think with others, consult your teachers, and then I think you can really do a good work. This is a simple kind of answer. I can't go into details.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? I cannot hear properly. You are not audible, please. There may be some problem with your audio. Write the questions, I think. I have a problem in understanding. So what is the question? I have a problem in understanding the methodology. This much I could read. Second portion I couldn't read. So let me define methodology as well. Methodology is nothing but the theoretical framework. Methodology, just keep in mind from, I agree with the book that I showed to you, Gabriel Griffin. Gabriel Griffin points out that the methodology is nothing but a theory, the theoretical framework. Okay, so you give a theoretical framework to the area you have chooses, to the topic you have chooses. It may be feminism, it can be post-colonialism, it may be Marxism, it can maybe be postmodernism or modernism. It may be anything like that. So it may be anything like that. I think methodology is nothing but for us students of literature. For us students of literature, methodology is nothing but the theoretical framework, critical framework. I hope I've answered you. I hope I've answered you. Any other question? Any other question? Sir, I am Nanda Pradhan. Sir, I am Nanda Pradhan. Can you relations between relations means research. Relations means research. Question didn't properly. Relation between research and what?
Hypothesis. Sir, her question.
Research hypothesis and research hypothesis.
Yes, sir. She is asking, please elaborate the distinction between research and hypothesis.
Research and hypothesis. Okay. I have tried to explain the term research. Research is something that you conduct. And while conducting the research, you have to come to hypothesis. Okay? So hypothesis is one component of research. Research is trying to find out a new perspective, a new you will have to have a certain kind of hypothesis. Otherwise, the entire research does not stand. Okay, it's a kind of a pillar on which your research stands. So research hypothesis is nothing but basis. So you have read some 20 stories of Thomas Hardy. And from that you have a certain kind of understanding that Thomas Hardy writes this kind of story. Or you have also read 10 articles on Thomas Hardy. So you understand that these are the areas where Thomas Hardy's works have been explained. So on the basis of that, you find that you formulate a question. You formulate this asking this question is also related to putting the hypothesis. Okay? You think that your hypothesis, the work that you are going to do, rests on a particular question or particular statement. Okay? That statement is something like that. That is a guess. You think that your research, that you think that Thomas Hardy will prove to be a majority, for example. This can be your hypothesis. Or you can think like that. Amitabh Ghosh basically believes in meeting with the people and conducting researches in the public. Okay, so public life is very important. So public space is a very important place in Amitabh Ghosh's novels. So you can put your hypothesis on the basis of this idea. So you can have ideas like that. So this is a relationship. Hypothesis is part of the research. Research is the whole thing. Any other question? How to measure what? I don't get that. How to measure? Put this and other. This is the relation with the hypothesis is a part of. I didn't get the question. Actually, the propping up actually doesn't. I can't read.
Sir, his question is, how to measure benefits?
I think this is a question you can address to the science people students of social sciences. You know these are the terms usually not used in English literature or literature for that matter. Variable is something that taken from the social science courses or the science courses? I'm not a fit person to answer this question.
So the next question is, can research methodology be more than one in a layered research or a research with multiple research questions?
Yes, in a research you can have multiple research questions, but the multiple research questions must be in a way related, because a research work is nothing but a very focused work. A research is nothing, you cannot bring in different things together. Okay? If you have one particular point of direction, you will have to follow that direction. You have one single question, you will have to answer that question. You have one single question, but you prefer to solve as a kind of a collection. Okay? Which these questions are related to one another. Okay? So if you have several questions like that, no problem in that. They must be related in some way or other. You can have more than one question.
So the next question is by Shahnaz. She is asking.
I get one question. What is the basic difference between research method and research methodology? I think I've already explained that. Research method is how you do the research. When you do research, you usually read texts. Okay? So you actually follow textual reading method. Similarly, there are several other methods. For example, interview method, survey method, archival method. So the way you do your research, conduct your research, is research method. And method is something different. Methodology is something different. It is concerned with the way, the perspective, the theoretical framework that you adopt. So this is basically the difference between the two. Actually, I couldn't read the question.
So there is a question. Shahnaz is asking, what is feminist methodology?
Feminist methodology is simply feminism. There are books on feminist methodology as well. The methodology which adopts feminist attitudes, feminist hypotheses, feminist research methods are called feminist methodology. So it depends on the perspectives you adopt. Okay, this depends on the way you look at. So whatever you look at from feminist point of view. That is a feminist methodology. You don't have object for research methodology, you have object for researchers. Okay, I did find a question. Why do you do your research? There are certain questions you ask yourself. So those are the research objectives. Okay, you want to find this and you want to find that. You have already read a lot of on Hardy or Ghosh or anybody else, and you want to find certain points that are fixed in your mind. So you want to find that those points are the research objects or research objectives. So you have objectives for your research, but not for research methodology. Research methodology you choose. Any other question? I think there is no other question. Thank you. Thank you, Shahnaz. So, I have how many kinds kinds of plagiarism, I have already mentioned them. That is nothing. What is important is that the basic point is that we should not take anything from anybody, lift anything from anybody without mentioning the sources, the author, the dates, etc., and without within quotation marks. If you do that, that is enough. So it does not matter how many kinds of plagiarisms there are. That does not really matter. What matters is that we should be very ethical in our approach to our research. Okay. Those are qualitative difference. How much you take and how much you do not take. Simple plagiarism and complex plagiarism, they are qualitatively different, but not quantitative. So, should we wind up or there is any question?
I think there is no more question. I request Madam to please end up.
Okay.
Madam, can you hear me? Thank you, sir, for your. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for such an encouraging and enriching lecture. I think we have enough questions and no more question is there, so we can end our session here. I request Madam if she can hear me to end up the session.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. From my behalf, thank you so much for organizing this. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
কোডটা কি ডাব্লিউ দেয় না? আচ্ছা, আর হচ্ছে এই স্ট্রিমিংটাকে বন্ধ করে দেবো?
হ্যাঁ, এবার করে দিতে পারো।
আচ্ছা, ওকে।